Cameron. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another segment of Cameron with Office Inside. Today, I got two very special guests who are very close to me, my brothers in the journey, and they're here to drop some nuggets on us. And I look forward to this interview. But before we get started, if you could push the like button and subscribe so you can receive notification for more content like this. These brothers are also not just my brother in the journey. They're part of our Authors Inside, and like I say, they full of wisdom, compassion, and they have a lot of nuggets. So I'm just gonna get right to it and let them introduce themselves. So how you guys doing?
Man, I'm doing great. My name is Otis Green III.
And you?
And I'm doing wonderful this morning, man. This is such a blessing. George K.L. Smith, and I'm really grateful to be here, brother. Top of the morning.
Good morning, man. Good, man. It's a blessing to have you both here. And so I just wanted to ask you guys, how long you guys was incarcerated?
All right, well, I go with myself since George is not speaking.
I love how Otis explains his. He does all that, so that's what I'm waiting on.
Exactly. You're getting it right now. So during my second term, which was my last term, I was incarcerated for 21 years, 7 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days.
Okay. 21 years. Okay. How about you, George?
For myself, man, 24 years, 9 months from the age of 17 to approximately almost 43 years old.
Okay. And how long you both been out? How long you been out, George?
I've been home since February 11, 2021, so a little over about 2.5 years now.
And you, Otis?
I was released April 4th, 2020. So I'm a little bit over 3 years.
Nice, man. Nice. And how's that feeling? What's that feel like?
Man, it's the best thing going. Freedom, right? I mean, when you're dreaming about freedom, it's okay. But once you got it in your hands, man, it's the best thing going, right? Because you really get an opportunity now to enjoy and fulfill your role that you're supposed to be playing in society. So it's a great thing, man. Every day is beautiful. Every day is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes, a little bump, little valley. But at the same time, you're reminded, man, of where you came from, and that keeps you motivated to keep moving forward, right? And even when someone doesn't realize that, I think everybody who has been incarcerated, especially for a long period of time, has that drive in them, right? To get through that one bad day, that one bad moment, that one bad decision that someone may have told them no in regards to something, to keep going forward, man. So freedom is beautiful. Yeah, I'd never lose this again. Believe that.
Yes, that's what's up.
Man, for myself, man, I just have to say it's something that I never could have imagined. I know, like Otis referred to, man, I know dreaming and what dreaming looked like, but some of the things that I've experienced, brother, I could have never imagined that I would experience them in my life, right? And they feel good. Sometimes it's really scary because I grew up in prison, so I'm making a lot of adult decisions now, and I'm like growing up. Right now, sometimes I still feel like I'm 17 years old, and I struggle with that part, making these decisions like that. But I love it, brother. Every day I drive across this bridge, man, to get to work. And every single day I can't help but to just really trip off where I'm at now. I say it every time, like, God, look where you let me be. And I just can't help it. Just watching all that water and all that stuff, brother. So, man, freedom is remarkable, man, and I love it.
How old were you when you first got incarcerated, George?
17 years old.
And if I could ask you, what's the most traumatic thing you saw or experienced in prison?
Wow. So I think the most traumatic thing that I saw in prison, I think that the encompassing helplessness, brother. Like there's this hopeless environment, right? Like for me in my experience, man, the biggest thing was the lack of control, man, not having any power over anything around me, and watching other people that feel the same way or respond to their helplessness in a way that their anger and aggression is taken out on each other and officers and hurt and harming one another, man, because there's no place to really process all that hurt, right? All those trauma, all that helplessness. So, and I kind of, I think that's it, brother. Just the lack of the emotional stuff that was the not having the emotional intelligence, bro. Somebody told me not too long ago, man, it took a lot for us to sit in those spaces and be able to come home and have our mental fortitude right, to have our minds right. imagine being in such a small space, dealing with grief, dealing with broken relationships. There's war in the morning, all that stuff, just all those stressors, man. And I think one of the biggest things also is, man, not having that emotional intelligence, man, the ability to deal with those emotions, man. So,
Yeah.
you kind of take it out on people, take it out on family members, take it out on your neighbor in the
Yeah.
tear, just stuff like that, bro.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna think about that. I like that question, Emmanuel.
Yeah.
You want to really consider, man, what's been the most traumatic for me, though, or what I
Okay.
saw.
Okay. Thank you. We'll get back with it. What
Yeah.
about you, Brother Otis? But before we get back with it with Otis, I think he's on the freeze right now, which is okay. Well, with you, George, I'm gonna get back with you. Could you
Yeah.
share a bit? Can you share a bit about your personal journey and how your experiences with incarceration help shape your perspective on at-risk youth?
So my experience in incarceration, brother, going to prison that young, being told that, you're a menace to society, I'm sentenced to double life plus 44 years. I'm sitting in this courtroom, man, and the judge tells me, yeah, you're going to go away for some time. And the likelihood of you returning depends on your behavior. But then you get to prison and the big homie tells you, hey, this is exact verbatim. How much time you got? I told him double life plus 44 years. At this time, I'm about 18. And he says, oh, little homie, get comfortable. We don't go home from here. And just having that mindset, brother, of walking in that space, knowing that I'm never going to go home, according to this man, according to the governor at that time, who said, man, the only way a lifer will return home was in a pine box. Man, that was a lot to take in as a kid. And the girl you want, she's left. And the family you wanted to be there, they have their lives to live, and they're just not there how I want them to be. And it was so oppressive, right? So as it translates into my journey, man, throughout prison, I lived just like I lived on the streets in prison, right? It was my gangbanging place. That's where I was growing up at. So those behaviors were just that. Until 2012, man, I had bumped my head so much and almost died there, brother, on potty watch, trying to smuggle some drugs into the institution. And it went horribly wrong. I mean, to the point where I'm in ADSEG, sitting on this toilet, chained down, waiting to poo, officers watching me poo, and the manner in which I got rid of the drugs, man, it collided in my body, brother. I had this paralytic state on my right arm, man, where I couldn't move. So that was my life-changing rock bottom, as they would call it. And something that happened to me, man, my grandmama had poured this seed into me when I was a boy. Man, you ever find yourself in that predicament, man, call out on Jesus, man, he'll show up. And that's what my life happened. I called out on the Lord. I with my little brother. Moving forward, 2012 began the journey of change, man. I removed myself from gang culture and found myself in different spaces with different people, brothers in the church and stuff like that, who had a whole different perspective of incarceration. They had been following biblical principles and things of that nature, and it kept them off the trajectory I was on in gang culture. And these men, they started pouring into me. I learned about self-help groups there, right? Long story short, I ended up some years later, after I left the gang, I ended up being allowed to go to the Offender Mentor certification program, right? Where they train inmates or incarcerated persons to be certified drug and alcohol counselors, right? Yes. So I went up there for my training. Actually, Otis is the one who really told me to go. He didn't motivate me. He told me, you're going, right? So I went there and I got the training, and it was fulfilling, bro. I learned how to serve other people and myself. Moving it forward, brother, now that I'm home, that same living amends that we talked about in our relapse prevention plans and parole plans and all that, man, I walked in it fully. I was home probably a couple months, man, before Alameda County probation department got a hold of our workbook, Otis and I am, and they asked, man, can you come teach this to the kids in juvenile hall? So it was the platform that I needed, man, with the preparation of the journey, the journey, what I went through, man, became the catalyst in which these young people were able to hear me. It's sad, man, but it seems like if you don't have their experience, if you don't know what they've been through, they don't want to hear you. So our journey allowed me to have that platform to share with them, where they were able to relate and listen, right? So that's what I do. I'm in the juvenile halls, a couple of juvenile halls, San Mateo Juvenile Hall and JJC here in Alameda County. He's pouring into these young people, man, that they don't got to do 25 years and come home. Some of them believe, you know what, all right, you did it. I can come home after 25 years and get my life together. And just really motivating them to have transformative
Yeah,
efforts,
definitely.
brother. You know, I could
Yeah.
talk all day. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go
No,
ahead,
I
bro.
will, Otis, he's back with us. Otis, I wanted to ask you the same question I asked George about what's the most traumatic thing you saw while you were incarcerated? Because the reason why I asked this question, because I don't want youngsters or people coming behind us to think prison is cool and we glamorize it. So if you were to say what was the most traumatic thing you saw while you were in prison or you experienced while you were in prison, what would that be?
I would say suicide, right?
Mm,
Uh, that environment, it creates the atmosphere for that, right? That's why it occurs so often. George mentions about helplessness, right? And that one is coupled with hopelessness that, can drive a person to that state, right? And you're just naturally in a state of helplessness because when you're incarcerated, you're dependent on so many other people and so many other things to make your days and your months and your years go by, right? And it makes you feel as if you're constantly in need of help, whether it has something to do with your laundry, your meals, your phone calls, your packages, whatever the case may be. It's I need help, I need help, I need help from some angle. And after a while, that concrete sets in, and there's a sense of hopelessness, right? That
Yeah,
that couples that helplessness, and that can drive a person to a bad state, man, and take them away from their natural ability, their natural desire just to keep living, right? Because since birth, our hearts have been beating, right? Since birth, our lungs have been, inhaling and exhaling. So to
yeah,
get to a point to where your mind, which is nothing but inches apart from your heart and your lungs, tells you, you know what, this story is going to stop,
yeah.
right? That's a
mhm,
bad place to be in, man, right? That's a bad place to be in. And to me, that was most traumatic, especially there was a couple individuals that I was actually kind of close to, right? Um, from doing time with before previously. But yeah, that was very traumatic. Just
man,
to hear
man,
that, even to think about it now, right? Because there's no solution, there's no resolution.
yeah,
And that will continue to happen. And it's unfortunate.
yeah, yeah, suicide, just there. I've seen a few of them too as well, people that I knew. And the next question I asked George, and I'm going to ask you is, uh, can you share a bit about your journey or your experiences and how that journey and experience shaped your perspective on average youth?
Um,
No, no,
Well,
I want to hit this with Otis, brother George.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, my journey came is when I was able to leave a level 3 facility after 5 years. I spent my first 10 years on a level 4. Then I spent 5 years on level 3. When I made it down to a level 2, it was a whole different environment for me because it was somewhat kind of like I was forced to interact with individuals I normally wouldn't, right? Um, and a lot of those individuals were youngsters, whether they were in my housing unit, my work site. And so I was constantly able to hear these conversations, these thoughts, these ideas, how they got to prison, right? What they were doing in prison, what they plan on doing when they
yeah,
left. And during that exact same time, I had exhausted the last of my legal rights, right? I went through our judicial system twice, right? Went through one by right, and then I went again on some which was basically fraudulent evidence I used to say, hey, man, you guys need to hear my story again. So when I was denied to be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, I had accepted reality, man. You know what? I'm going to die in prison, right? I went in prison with a sentence of 25 to life, 25 to life plus 5 years, which gave me a projected release date of 2052. Right. So I came to terms, man, I'd be 79 at that point. Kind of really doubted if I'm going to make it that long based on family genetics and the way I had treated my body over the years and my addiction, and was still treating my body in an addictive state in prison. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm a dying here. But I knew I had some worth. So I'm like, you know what, man, if I'm a dying here, let me try to help somebody out, right? Prior to them getting out. So that gave me something to wake up and live for every day now, right? Instead of falling into that state of continuous helplessness and hopelessness. And so I seen at that time an opportunity to get involved with the offender mentor certification program. And I signed up for it. The first time I was rejected because they were interested in individuals who had a release date of 5 years or less, right? Because the state wanted to show that, hey, we got this program, it works, we can help people out, and we can sit them back in society to be productive citizens.
Yeah.
What came to light within the next year was that most of these men that are going through this program, and when I say most, I mean over 90%, were getting immediately released, right? Because of the work they had to do, that parallel process they had to go through. And
Yeah.
so then they opened the floodgates to those who had longer projected release dates. And so that's what allowed me an opportunity to get into the program. And then it was all about everyday man work, which my work was to help other individuals do better today than they were doing yesterday. And so with
Thank
that
you.
work, I'll continue on that path.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Nice, nice. Now I got another question. What type of strategies or methods do you think will be good as far as reaching these youngsters, engaging with them? What type of methods or strategies do you think would be effective?
I think the hands-on approach, right? To actually being there in the midst with them to help them understand and to change their way of thinking, right? Because that's what it's all about. Whether you're going to be an individual who's dangerous or you're going to be an individual who's safe, it's all based on the way that you think, right?
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be provided, right? They need to be challenged, they need to be encouraged, they need to be motivated, right? To think different because we are better than the things that may have happened to us that were traumatic, right? We're better than the environments we're in if they're not the best environment, right? And just to really realize, man, we're not going to live forever. And so therefore we have to make a plan every day, man, how can I move forward in my life, right? And not just give up and fall prey to whatever happens, right? Because a few minutes of your life, right? And I was saying this the other day on social media, a few minutes of your life, man, mistake making can cost you decades of your life. You know, when you really look at, man, when people make a decision to commit a crime, how long did that crime actually occur? A minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? And turn around and cost you, man, the rest of your life in prison.
Yeah. George, you can answer that same question. What type of approaches or strategies do you think will be effective in engaging and reaching these youngsters today?
I definitely go along with what Otis said. But I want to add to that, man. You know, I think the family dynamic is so important, right? Like I'm talking about not just helping the young person, but actually assisting the family at the same time, right? So we give all these young people all this information, all these tools, all these skill sets, and they go back to the same house that may have contributed to the way they process information, right? They may go back to this dysfunction, bro. So, and I think one of the biggest components to it is assessing that young person's need very specifically. Oftentimes, man, they're telling us what's going on, right? Their needs, that I say this blanket solution for all young people, and it's just not so, right? I really believe you have to assess each person specifically, man, and meet their needs specifically, right? So I think that's one of the biggest methods, having an ability to assess their needs and meet their need very specifically and allow them to talk about it, right? Let them contribute to their healing process, right? And then that's one of the things that we do, man. We allow these people, these young people, a platform, man, to express themselves and to create their narrative for their healing. So, and the caring adult, man, they need a presence, a continual presence of a caring adult. I tell you guys all the time, man, 4 brothers, right? 3 of us were incarcerated at the same time together. One brother who never seen incarceration, graduated with his bachelor's from East Bay, Cal East Bay, right? And finally, why did you, out of all the stuff, our family dynamic is the same. Why did you stay away? Right? A couple things, man. I didn't want to end up like you all, but this lady came in my life very young in 6th grade. Not from the family dynamic. This lady came into his life and recognized his potential and poured into him consistently, and she didn't let go. So the presence of a caring adult, right, is huge, man, who can refer you and come alongside you and walk you through your process. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you want to add something, Otis?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that because that's where, and we talk about this in the workbook, our influences come from, right? So you have the family dynamic, like George said, you have media, you have school, and you have your peers, right? They come from those 4 areas. That's, hey, I didn't make that up. That's just,
Yeah.
what science has showed us. And so when you're able, like, especially in school, right? We would be able to attack 3 of those 4 components immediately, right? So
Yeah.
if you're in the school, which is a component, and you're giving or pouring into, as George said, to an individual, what you're pouring into them is going to, naturally bleed off until when they go home, right? Which is another component. You're at school where the majority of their peers are. So you're going to also be pouring into that. So you can actually change a person's life by within the school district or the school itself to be able to pour into these individuals, even those who don't have a traumatic experience, right? Those who
Yeah.
have what we could deem a good life, they still need that influence component so they will continue to have a good life as they become adults, right? So
Yeah.
that's why it's really important, man, to be in that school environment and to be able to do that assessment because no one there is able to do that, right? Unfortunately. The principal doesn't have time to assess the students. The teachers don't have time to assess the students, right? The janitors don't have the time to assess the students, right? And on top of that, they don't have that lived experience that can actually tell the story, right? Give the students a narrative to like, look, okay, if you want to do this and this, ABC is going to happen, right? And even if someone is not able to fully comprehend that, or someone just is so strong-headed, like, you know what, I'm gonna do what I want to do anyway. Once they hit their head on the wall for the first time, they can reflect back and be like, you know what, man, they told me about this.
Yeah.
Maybe I should think about the rest of the stuff they told me because it seemed like it's true. So let me stop,
Yeah.
right? So in the worst case scenario, we'd at least stop repeated behavior. But I believe the work we do, all of us as individuals, the work we do as a collective unit of authors inside can have a drastic impact if we were able to have that school platform.
And if I may, man, I love that because, like, remember, we done it together, all of us, in the prison, right? Transformative efforts, bro, changing a violent environment to one of the most peaceful places in the state of California. Us three, all of us, and other people that were a part of Grow, right? So we're talking about changing a culture, right? Like getting in these schools, man, getting in these juvenile halls, man, and transforming the culture. It's possible, brothers. We've done it. We're doing it. He talked
Yes.
about the collective effort. It took all of us. So imagine all these CBOs or community-based organizations, all of us supporting one another and showing up in these spaces and giving these kids exactly what they need, as opposed to beating up our heads against each other for funds. And, imagine that, bro, like this collective effort of changing this culture, bro, in those schools where the school becomes a very, very safe place to go. I might have drama at home. Let me go take my butt to school. You know what I'm saying? Like we can do it, bro. And people are boxed in and they thinking like it can't happen. If we had been boxed in, bro, CMC West, man, would have burned down, bro. But we weren't. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, man, we can do it. Can be done, brother.
George, I want to add, before my change, one of my factors was me having the inability to ask for help. Now, we're trying to reach people. Well, how do you build rapport and to gain trust from these people that's because I don't want to say average youth or young adults, whoever it may be. How do you gain their trust? Because they might be skeptical. Because like I said, I was like that. So
Right.
how do we break that barrier down?
So in my experience, especially working with them now in the juvenile halls and in the community, one of the biggest things that I learned is an instant, the very moment that we meet somebody, the rapport building begins. That respect that's given, that handshake, that look in that eyes like, hey, man, I'm here to help, right? And again, I want to always go back to the consistency. You can't come and go. That's what they're used to. Coming and going, I'll be there Saturday and you don't show up. That's what they're used to. They're looking for a consistent person. When I first meet young people, brother, maybe in the first 2 or 3 settings, they're not as open. But when they see that I've been there for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, the vulnerability it just goes forward. They start talking about things that are really bothering them. And they recognize, brother, when we learned about that ORS, like open-ended questions and all that stuff, brother, I'm listening. I'm reflecting back what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
So they know their words aren't falling on deaf ears. And in that space, bro, that caring adult space is where I have found that the trust begins, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have that. or I couldn't recognize that I had it as a young person. Some people try, even the police officer, bro, when I was in the backseat of the car, told me something good, right? But I couldn't receive it from him. So just having that mindset of why didn't I, or how couldn't I receive it? How can I give it to this young person where they'll receive it? Bro, you have to be consistent and you have to love them, bro. No matter their crimes, you have to set your biases aside. No matter what they look like, no matter where they're from, you got to get past all that and just love people, bro. Just love them, bro, before you even meet them, before you even know their name. I love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how, bro.
Nice.
You got to love them, bro.
Nice.
100%.
Consistency and love. I like
Yes,
that.
sir.
Now, Otis, you want to tackle that? How do we gain these people's trust, to receive help? It won't be resistance because again, I was resistant and I had the inability to ask for help. So how do we knock down that wall and gain their trust?
I mean, you're gonna have resistance, but George, he couldn't have said it no better. Consistency, right? That's the thing that's gonna overcome everything. But you're gonna have the resistance because what you're doing, especially like George said, the first, second, third time, you're trying to present to someone as a stranger that they need to let go what they've been doing and they need to do something new that they have no idea what that's about, right? You need to stop being bad and you need to start being good. I have no idea what you mean that I need to be good, right? That doesn't interest me, right? Because I've come to convince myself my needs are being met by the things that I'm doing, right? This is where
Yeah.
my enjoyment comes from. This is where my fulfillment comes from, even though it's all superficial. But it's the consistency, man. That has to happen, right? And that can help you also as someone who's trying to assist, right? Whether you're trying to intervene with someone who's already started that path or you're trying to prevent it, you will find individuals with a lot of denial patterns, right? They're going to put up this front to where, hey, you know what? I'm trying to avoid talking or thinking about anything that's painful or overwhelming to me, right? So I'm going to put this resistance until you show me the efforts that you are trying to make in my life, the improvements you're trying to get me to do are genuine, right? That you really care, that you really do love the work that you do and the people you're trying to help, right? Because
Yeah.
I understand what you've been through. I understand what you're going through right now by sitting along the fence. And I understand the challenges you're going to face moving forward as you do try to improve your life and be a better person to your peers, to your schoolmates, to your family, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question before we go. I want each of you to tell our viewers why is this so important to you to to help others and to share your experiences.
Okay. So I'm gonna put it in a nutshell, right? We're gonna make it about me for a second. I'm gonna make it about my ego for a minute. I need to continue living my life, not feeling like all my mistakes and my hangups and my habits and the victims I created was all in vain, right? I know the crud I've been through, the stuff I've created, the mindset I carried, the harm I caused individuals and their family. I can turn that into something that's worthy, right? Something that can prevent other people from harboring others, right? I can prevent others from creating more victims, right? I need that for myself, man. I need that because when I started this race, I was a whole lot better than I appeared to be, right? And I need to show that, right? I need to give that back to mankind, right? So everybody can enjoy life, their God-given right to live in peace, right? To wake up every morning and do whatever it is you want to do, as long as you're not imposing your will on others, right? In a negative sense. And so I need that for myself. And since I need it for myself, it's going to bleed off into others and it's going to bleed off into society as a whole.
Thank you, bro. Well said. How about you, brother George?
Yeah, that's what's up, man. And I love that, man. So Otis taught me a long time ago, right? In my journey, he told me, the greatest amends that anybody can give to the person they hurt and harm, the people they've hurt and harmed, was to change their behavior. In order to change my behavior, I had to change the way that I think, right? So I think my journey and my experience gives other people, I think about NA and AA, the big books, right? Billions or perhaps millions upon millions of people have been impacted by these people's stories, right? about this drunken state and this addictive state, and they've come out of those places and they're thriving and they're still attending meetings 30 years later. That's why my story is impactful, because there are a population of people who live just like I did or gonna live the way that I did, need to hear my journey, need to hear my story, need to hear my impetus for change. They need to know that it's possible, that there's something else after incarceration, that there's something else after the trauma, right? That their decisions and their horrible choices don't define them today unless they continue in that behavior, right? So I'm saying, man, like that's what it is, man. I want transformation for people, not just motivation, transformation, bro. And our stories have an ability to do that, not glorifying it. Some people are sharing their stories, helping young people, and they're glorifying their behaviors, right? Still talking about their lifestyles as if that stuff, there's a pride associated with it. I don't want to do that. I want to take responsibility for, like Otis said, the crud that I've lived in, the people that I've hurt and harmed, right? Constantly walking in that empathy, bro. Like, dang, man, I really was a problem. You know, lastly, man, there's one thing that Otis also taught me, man, and I always go back to him because he's my mentor, my big brother, all that, right? He told me, man, that my state of incarceration, he taught me that my state of incarceration was society's way of trying to put me back on the trajectory with my family where I should have been doing the right things. And I share that with the young people. I know this is oppressive right now, but let me show you how this is supposed to be a part of your correction. Because I, George, wasn't supposed to be in the society, brother, the way that I behaved. I don't care what nobody say. I know that I was a danger to the people around me and to myself. No longer today, bro. I'm a blessing to every person I encounter. And I praise God for that, man. So my journey is important, bro. I need to share my story, and Authors Inside has offered that platform. All my books that have been published offers a platform for young people to hear my journey, for old people to hear my journey, people who have never been incarcerated, people who don't have similar lives as me, but they're faced with young people that have lives like myself. So thank you, brother.
Real quick before we go, can you share with our viewers the title of your books? So just in case they going through whatever, they can go grab your book real quick.
Okay, the very first book, The Molding of Him, by George K.L. Smith. The second book, it's a workbook, an interactive workbook to address your gang behavior, right? Your lifestyle addictions, your criminal addictions. It's called I Own I Am. I Once Was, Now I Am, created by George Smith and Mr. Otis Green III, right?
Yeah.
And lastly, Butterflies and Bumblebees, Beauty That Hurts, a collective works of poetry, man, that I was able to capture those thoughts, those feelings and emotions and behaviors in a very poetic form, living vicariously through those books. I wrote them all while I was incarcerated, right? And now I'm home and watching them, the labor that they perform on their own accord, being sent out to people. So yeah, brother, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you guys want more information on that, you guys can go to our website, authorsinside.org, and look them up and check them out.
For
Thank
sure.
you too, man. I appreciate you guys for coming in. You guys have a real wonderful day.
Hey, wait, time out, brother.
Yeah.
You do the thing.
Hey, time out, man. So I'm talking about, give me something, Emmanuel. Give me something about your journey, brother. Tell me something to motivate the people. Give me something.
Well, here's something that has happened to me the other day. And this is how God works. I went to my father's 80th birthday party. And in that, the hotel I was staying at, I had no idea was 3 minutes away from my life crime.
Mm.
And when I first acknowledged that, I didn't want to deal with it because it was the day of my dad's birthday party. So the next day, Sunday, I went there to the scene of the crime. My wife encouraged me to get out the car. I think I mentioned it to brother Otis because he was at the party. He said, man, go there. So I went there and I sat there, man, and prayed. And it brought back a lot of mixed emotions and ugly feelings and memories. You know, the pain, the anger, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment. You know, but in that, in that, I found space knowing that I wasn't the same person 29 years ago that I am today. And I could go ahead, move forward, spreading the message of hope and healing to anyone who would listen.
Yeah.
So that I found comfort in that.
Yeah.
And that's my life service, man. Just this is why we do what we do. We don't want other people, like Otis said, we're not trying to create more victims. We notice the horrible, horrific things that I know, the horrible, horrific things that I carry, I put people through. And I don't want nobody else to put nobody through what I put people through. So, the journey is always in process, in progress. It's always, sharing, being an open book, and like I say, man, that's to the day I die.
Yes, sir. Thank you, big brother.
Yeah. Yes. So again, man, thank you guys for sharing, man, and
All right.
appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you. God
Yeah, I
bless.
appreciate you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
camera on.